Hey, this is Micah Campbell with Anatolian Press, and you are listening to UNFREAKINGBELIEVABLE, the ultimate in podcasting.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Unfreaking Believable podcast, episode 2. We are your hosts.
I'm Jenny.
I'm Betsy.
And as always, I'm Jen. We're all authors who live in the firm belief that the truth is stranger than fiction and that life is full of crazy little moments that can change the course of our everyday lives. In our last episode, we introduced ourselves and we shared some unfreaking believable stories of our own. But now we're going to rope our friends in and bring them into the madness. We have a dynamic and entertaining guest for you tonight who will regale you with his story told as only he can tell it. But before we get to all that, hello, ladies.
Hello.
How's it going?
How's your week been? How's things going?
It's been a
Hectic
week,
and crazy.
but it's all good.
Everybody ready to jump on the bandwagon for episode 2? I'm pretty excited.
Yeah, let's do
I'm
it.
really excited.
All right. Well, then, as always, to kick off the show, I have an obscure word for you today. Are you ready?
Ooh, what's the word for the day?
Yes.
Okay, so the word for this time comes from 18th century Scotland.
Oh, it's a
And
good place to be.
It's a very good place to be.
Very pretty.
Any of our Scottish listeners will probably
Sorry.
hate me forever for my horrendous accent. Anyway, our word for the day is Herkle-Durkle. Herkle-Durkle.
Herkle-Durkle. That is a good
Herkle-Durkle.
one.
And Herkle-Durkle is a verb. Herkle-Durkling is when you stay in bed after you should have gotten up just because you feel like it.
Oh, I'd like to do that, but I never get the chance.
I haven't had a good Herkle-Durkle in a while.
I think that's more than we needed to know about you. That's all I'm saying. But so Jenny, that's our word for the day. Everybody, it's your charge to go out there and find a way to use Herkle-Durkle today, or more importantly, make a point of Herkle-Durkling at least once between now and our next broadcast. Jenny, what 3 exciting fun facts do you have for us today?
All right. So last week I did 3 fun facts about podcasting, and tonight I'm going to do 3 literary fun facts.
Ooh.
And the first one is that Sherlock Holmes never actually said elementary, dear Watson. That was one that was new to me. And my second fun fact, comes in the form of a question. What is the best-selling novel of all time?
It has to be fiction.
Just the best-selling novel of all time.
Well, if you count religious texts, it's the Bible.
It would be the Bible, but I guess in this case, it's not including religious texts.
Okay.
I'm going to go with To Kill a Mockingbird.
Ooh,
that's a good choice.
Good guess. Jen, how about you before I give the answer? Got a shot at it?
No, I'm at a loss. I got nothing.
All right. It's actually Don Quixote it's the Spanish epic by Miguel de Cervantes.
Yes. I actually read that in the original Spanish when I was in AP Spanish in high school. Yeah.
That's a fun fact itself right there. All right.
It was not so fun. It was hard.
And my third fun fact of the day is The Things and Where the Wild Things Are by author and illustrator Maurice Sendak were originally horses. And I did not know that.
I did not know that either. And I know that book forwards and backwards. That was my kid's favorite. All right. Well, I'm pretty excited about our guest today. I know you guys are. What do you think we're going to learn from Micah today?
Oh, look, I've had enough conversations to know with Micah that would tell me that any kind of prediction is completely pointless.
Okay.
Because if we predict it, he will change the subject, guaranteed.
Darn right.
Probably true.
And did I hear from one of you that Micah is essentially responsible for the two of you meeting?
Absolutely. It all started I started that one last week, Dark and Stormy Night. Mike and I had kind of made friends on Instagram, and we had been messaging back and forth. And the fun fact that Micah doesn't know is most of the time we were messaging, I was actually in a bubble bath.
That's great.
Were you Herkle-Durkling?
Yes,
right,
I was not Herkle-Durkling, but I was bubbling in the bathtub. But we were talking about folklore and Bigfoot and aliens and just books in general. And he was doing a podcast at the time about the paranormal. And so we were kind of throwing down the idea of, well, when I start the new season, I'd like to have you on. And then he decided to go a different direction. He did a different podcast, and he came back around. He's going to do a storytellers podcast, the Storyteller Saga. And he asked me to be the first guest, and I was hugely honored. But then he asked Jen to be the second guest, Jen to be the second guest. And so we kind of crossed paths, but that wasn't really actually how we met. How we actually met was when he started doing Autumn Tales, and he wanted to do this horror anthology with a heart. I kept telling him, no, I don't write horror. Don't write horror. He's like, oh, come on, it's for a good cause.
Like, sure you do. Just do what you do and just make it a little bit spookier.
I have to write things that scare me. I'm going to write about sharks next time, I swear.
There you go.
Because I'm terrified. But Jen was also in that project, and we had a group chat, and we kind of got to know each other that way. And before you know it, the next thing you know, we were besties.
Well, and I will tell you that when Micah interviewed me, and I have proof of this because I actually still on my website have the link to the recording of my interview. Mm-hmm. Micah mentioned you and was talking about some of the stuff you write. And I believe I actually said she and I are going to be besties. Yes. I think I actually say that in the interview. So
yeah, you did.
That's great.
It was a harbinger.
Betsy has that effect. Yeah, Betsy has that effect on us.
I attract people who
are extremely really weird. That's
no,
true.
I attract people who are like me, who need to be in my circle. The universe puts them in my path. Yeah.
Yes.
I think that kind of means the same thing. But anyway, okay. So I'll give you a little formal intro here, Micah, if you're strapped in and ready for that.
Oh, I'm ready.
Buckle up, baby.
Micah Campbell, third person, here we go, has been a literary jack of all trades for as long as I've known him. He's a writer, podcaster, publisher, musician. Just to put a few labels on his many hats, his best-selling book, Urban Legends, Ghost Stories, and Folklore, is a tremendous collection of stories. Call them fiction if you wish, but I have some doubts. Which is a great reference for writers, folklore nerds, and readers who love the paranormal. And it's told with a tongue-in-cheek snark, which is Micah's calling card. So, Micah, welcome to the show officially.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I am honored and thrilled to be here with three legends. I'm super pumped.
Well, I think Betsy's going to start you out under the microscope. So,
yes.
Oh, great. Cool.
This is how pumped we are. We're going to do rapid fire, this or that. And I want everybody to answer because I want to know what everybody's this or that is. So, first of all, this is quick fire. So be ready. Paperback or ebook?
Paperback.
Summer or winter?
Winter.
I live in Florida. There's no difference.
Autumn. Star Wars or Star Trek?
Star Trek.
Vampires or werewolf?
Vampires.
Vampires, as long as they don't sparkle.
Yes.
Folgers or Maxwell House?
Folgers. If I have to choose, Folgers.
Jen's out on this one. She doesn't drink coffee. Yes. I don't care. I'll drink all of it. Just put enough coffee made in it and I'm good to go. So let's talk about your obsession with Folgers coffee.
You know, it's hilarious. I don't actually have an obsession with Folgers coffee, but it has turned into a gigantic thing within the community. And people I don't even know will DM me pictures of them at a store. And like,
I've sent you quite a few.
Oh yeah, yes. But I know you. These are people I don't know. And they're like, hey, check this Folgers crate out. That's freaking hilarious. Like, I love it. I don't know where it came from. So I think what happened was, as we were all getting to know each other, and just God bless the Autumn Tales first go, because that crew, that first original 10 is still tight. We're still tight.
Yes,
and I love everybody in that original. But Chelsea and I got to talking, and she was messing with me because I was drinking Folgers. I was like, "What else do you drink?" And she was starting to talk about all this frou-frou beans imported from blah, blah, blah. And,
sounds like my son.
Yeah. I was like, get out of here. Just give me some dang black Folgers coffee and I'm good to go. And so from there spawned the we ended up putting all the Easter eggs in the book about Folgers, and so that
This is the first I'm hearing of this. I love this.
See, now you have to go back and reread all the stories, because in all of the Autumn Tale stories, there is an Easter egg of Folgers.
Every single one of them. Yeah.
Oh my
in the
God,
first book, not so much in the
first
second.
book, right.
Oh, but I did include one in Kinvara.
I did too.
Yeah, a lot of the OGs did, which I was very thrilled with. I didn't finish my short story until like 30 seconds before it had to be uploaded.
That is a true fact. I know that to be an accurate piece of information.
So I did not have a chance to do that.
Here's another fun fact. I just got back from New Orleans, and I didn't even know this until recently, but Folgers was founded in New Orleans.
Really?
Did not know that.
They still have a factory there, and I met their safety director.
Oh,
wow. How cool is that? That's
and
fun.
I'm like, that was my one thing on my bucket list, was I wanted to go to the Folgers factory, but we just did not have time. So when we go back, ladies, for our girls' weekends, we have to go to the Folgers factory just for Micah and get some pictures.
Yeah,
we'll send him a fruit basket.
Yeah, tell them about me. Get me on the in. You know, I need to.
Yeah. Well, just like WriterCon owes us a little marketing spin.
There you go. Yeah,
we need to get Folgers in on the branding.
Oh yeah, Folgers has owed me. Folgers has owed me for.
I think they should be sponsoring you, Mike.
Yeah, they should. They should. And actually, I was telling Chelsea that at some point I am going to approach them.
I think you should.
Look at this back catalog of all the things I've done for you. Yeah. Let's do this.
And the funny thing is, like, now all my books, I realize if there's a spot to put something in about coffee, I have to mention Folgers.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I was trying to make it positive.
It's become a cultural phenomenon.
Yeah. That's so good. I can't wait to see where that goes. That's awesome.
Yeah. All right. So, Micah, obviously you've had a very colorful history in terms of creative endeavors. Like I mentioned, you've done a little bit of everything, but how did you actually get into the storytelling gig? Because I think that's not how you started out.
Yeah, I think the actual getting into storytelling was from being a musician. So I was the head writer in our band, although I can't sing because I'm deaf in my right ear. So I can never find and keep a pitch. But but I was always the head writer, and I've always liked, even before I liked to read, I liked, comic books, or, I liked film, I liked stories. So I think it just came naturally to me. But then after years and years and years and years of playing, in this band and touring and being played in other countries and, having CDs and being, we had a lot of success there, and then just kind of stopped. And I was like, man, now what do I do? So I can still play by myself, but that's no fun. So I started kind of toying with, and I always tease about, everyone has that, that pile, that 180,000 word epic high fantasy, that's sitting in their back.
I happen to know you have that for a fact.
Yeah. So I've got that back there. I started writing that when I was like 17, and I'm 40 or something now. So it's been a while. But so then that's kind of what got me into the telling stories, when I had to continue that creative outlet and that connection with other people and their enjoyment of creativity. Yeah.
On that same line, how did Anatolian Press come to be?
Well, Anatolian Press came around after I met all these beautiful people that I met in the writing community. And I just said, I don't know anything from anything else. I'm an idiot. But I was like, if we form a community, if we make this thing and go forward with it with the same ideas and with the same thoughts and for the same goal, surely we've got to be able to do something. So I've always been kind of the person where it was same with the anthology. I just asked Betsy, I was like, what do you think about doing an anthology? And she was like, okay, yeah, let's do it. I'm like, what do you think about doing? I didn't ask her this. I asked myself this. What do you think about starting a publishing company? Okay, yeah, let's freaking do it. So, that's kind of how it started.
Right on.
Now, I want to ask you a book specific question, because I'm a fan of urban legends, ghost stories, and folklore. Mm-hmm. Your best selling tome. Mm-hmm. I do really like the book. I'm curious, because one of the things that strikes me about that book is how thorough your research was.
Mhm.
So could you tell us a little bit about that research process and what you did for that book?
Well, Chelsea was asking me that same thing the other day. We're actually doing an episode on our podcast in a couple weeks that goes into one of those stories, but she's like, where did you find this? I was like, yeah, you will not connect these dots. No one can connect these dots unless you do this. And I showed her. And what I did for a lot of the stories was I actually had a whiteboard and I would put a map up.
Like a murder board?
It ended up looking like that. Yeah. Yeah. So I'd have a whiteboard and I'd put up a map and then I'd have red lines and I'd have my pens and I'd say, this is where it started. And then I'd look maybe a mile out. What other strange or ominous or villainous things happened a mile out from here within a 10-year radius? Bam, that got a pin. Then I'd narrow it down and expand the search. So now what happened here in the last 5 years, but from a 2-mile radius? Bam, and then that would get a pin. And from there, I was able to see. And so one of the stories, no one had figured this out, but there was a fireman who had died on the same bridge that was haunted, but he never got any kind of recognition in the story because it happened 20 years after the fact. But if you tied him into what happened at that time, there was a little girl. The girl that was there on the bridge is the girl that he was going to save.
Oh wow!
But nobody
That's like an
had
X-Files episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But nobody had put that together. You couldn't find it anywhere online. All you could find is the two stories, but nobody found that they were connected. And yeah, so that's what I did for a lot of them. Was just a lot.
Was that literally the most fun book ever to research, though?
It was a blast. Yeah, and I cannot wait to do another one. I absolutely loved it, and I cannot wait to do another one.
And are you doing another one?
Yes, if I get time now that Chelsea's on board with Anatolian Press and we brought Aaron in, that because it's way too much for one person to do. So I've got Chelsea working with us and Aaron working with us, and even Chad working with us. Hopefully, I will actually get some time to do another one. Because yes, definitely, I've been researching Jack the Ripper. He's going to be one of my first.
We need to talk before you do that one because I had to do a paper in college. It's actually a speech class, and it was the year that it was the 100th anniversary of Jack the Ripper.
Mm-hmm.
And my assignment was I had to do a 10-minute presentation that left the audience with a strong emotional response. So I had done all the research on Jack the Ripper. My dad was a meat cutter, so I had a collection of knives. And this is back when you could take those to school. You can't do that now.
Right.
But I had them all laid out on the table. I presented the 4 main suspects. And then I went through the theory of whether they were right-handed, left-handed, attack from the front, attack from behind. And then I asked the audience to vote who they thought. I did a closed poll, who they thought the killer was. Yeah. And then the next week, the teacher came back in with the grades, and I was going to announce, what they thought. And then, of course, we obviously don't know who Jack the Ripper really was. Right. But, based on my evidence and my research, who I thought it was.
Yeah.
So the next week when the teacher did all the grades, she did everybody else first, and I was the last one. She goes, now this last one, she said, I initially gave this one a B because of the gross factor and the use of props and the performance and everything that I had done. And she said, but I went home that night and I had nightmares the whole weekend. Not one night, but the whole weekend. So I have changed the grade, A+. And now who did it? Because I want to know.
Wow. Yeah. Were one of the suspects H.H. Holmes?
That was on the list.
Right on.
So have you ever read Patricia Cornwell's Portrait of a Killer?
I have.
It's been a long time since I read it, but I can read it.
So Micah, as you're doing your research for Jack the Ripper, I highly recommend it. It's not a novel. It is a forensic docu-book. Of her forensic investigation into who she thinks did it, and it's actually pretty interesting. I mean,
that'll be awesome. So I don't care about spoilers. Who does she think did it?
An artist. I can't remember his name.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I totally name drop because I was in a Zoom call last night that was one of the writing groups that I follow, and Patricia Cornwell was in the group last night.
Stop!
Wow.
Yes.
I love
that's unfreaking believable.
Okay, so Patricia, if you're listening, we want you on the podcast.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
definitely. All right, so first of all, that's incredibly awesome, and I cannot wait. You have to tell me when Jack the Ripper book is coming out. Keep me posted.
That'll be fun.
obviously that's your research process, but what does the writing process look like for you? Because I know you are a guy who has 15 irons in the fire at any given time.
Yes.
So what does that writing process look like for you?
My writing process is hilarious because I can go and sit in front of a computer. I never outline. I don't do any outlining at all, period. And I basically just write. And if I have to stop and make notes or do research or whatever I have to do, I will stop and do it then and continue. But I never do an outline. And that's how the Urban Legends book came about, is because I wrote basically a paragraph about Wendigo. And I was like, that is awesome. I got to find out what this Wendigo is. And I started researching and figured it out. And then I came up with the next one and wrote a paragraph. So I will sit down and I will write a paragraph, 400 words, 500 words. And then I'll just walk away and I'll play guitar or I'll do something else. And then like a couple days later, I'll come down and I'll pound out like 10,000 words.
I'm curious, with your research with the Wendigo, did it include the Anasazis?
It probably did, because I was very thorough, but it's been a long time since I've reread it, so I'd have to go back and look at it. But I will look at it as soon as I'm done, and I'll let you know.
What Jenny really wants to know is if it included episode 1 of Supernatural. That's what she really wants to know. Episode 2. Okay.
Yeah,
my bad.
I think episode 1 was the woman in white.
It was.
Yeah, it was. Yep. I got confused there. Yep. But it was episode 1 of the X-Files was a Wendigo.
Oh, was it really?
On.
It was.
It's been a long time since I've seen X-Files, but I was laughing when I was editing y'all's first episode because you were talking about both being supernatural freaks, and I am a super supernatural freak. So
I wish I could think of the name of the television show, but the guy, the hunter they took out to hunt the Wendigo, the one the sister and brother hired trying to find their missing brother. Mm-hmm. He was in another show and he played a Wendigo hunter.
Seriously.
And he said one of Dean's lines is like, "Have you ever hunted a Wendigo?"
That's like a really specific kind of typecast. Like so specific.
Right? It's so
I hope he has another job.
So now I do
Star Trek.
I do quote Dean Winchester in chapter 1.
Do you?
Yeah.
Yes, he
Love
does.
that.
So
Yes.
Pudding.
not that.
The SPN family out there gets it though.
Yes, they do.
So, Micah, obviously we can't interview you without having probably the most important discussion.
Yes.
And that's the beard.
It's got to be the beard.
Got to be beard. Yeah. Daily beard care regimen. Go.
Comb it out. Put some oil on it. Brush it out. Brush the oil out. Mm-hmm. Towel it down. And then brush it out again.
Do you curl the mustache ever? Do you wax it, curl it?
No. Once it gets long, because I'm only sitting at about 2 inches. I was at about 10.5 inches before I shaved.
I remember. I've seen the pictures.
Yeah. So then at that point, you do the whole thing, but you also do a hair straightener. You run a hair straightener through it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, to keep it, because it'll curl up and it'll look weird. Yeah.
And what does Mrs. Campbell think of the beard?
Oh, she hates it.
Has anybody
my husband
ever
gets in trouble when he shaves his because I like the beard.
Well, no, she likes.
I like my husband's too.
No, she likes a little bit shorter than this. She likes me having facial hair.
Right.
But she does not like the crazy biker thing that I had.
She doesn't want to feel like she's married into Duck Dynasty, is what you're saying?
Exactly. But,
or is it that she doesn't want somebody with longer hair than her?
Well, that could be too.
Face?
Yeah, that could be too.
Has anybody ever grabbed it and you had to quote Gimli going, "Not the beard"?
No, fortunately not. Except my kid. My kid has grabbed it and it hurts. It hurts bad.
Kids will do that.
Our Lord of the Rings fans will get that one.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
So, Micah, how do you do it all? How do you balance your work and your life and everything else?
I don't.
Whiskey.
Whiskey's always the answer.
Whiskey.
Yeah. No, surprise. And it's so funny because I have a persona. I don't drink all the time. I rarely drink.
None of us do. We talk about
exactly.
It when we do it.
It's all a persona. Yep. But no, I have no idea what I'm doing. I try to keep up with whatever the next goal or the next promise was, and I'm always like, my pants are always on fire. Like I'm always right at the edge, getting something done before the next thing happens. And,
right at the 11th hour.
Yeah. If I didn't do so much, that probably wouldn't be the case. But I love staying busy and creating and all that stuff. So it's just how I roll.
I was just going to say, so Micah, you've answered a lot of questions for us, but of course, there's one reason why we actually brought you here, and that's to tell us an unfreaking believable story.
Yeah.
So lay it on us. What you got for us?
Well, I've got a few. And the one I always fall back on is the one I'm going to ask you if I can share, because if y'all have heard it already, then I won't. I know Jenny hasn't, but I always love sharing my Stoll story. If y'all have heard that one, then
I don't think I've heard it.
You've not heard my Stoll story. Great.
And our listeners definitely haven't.
Here we go. Drum roll, please. So, okay, this is my Stoll story. It is actually in the Urban Legends story. It was a lot of fun to be able to put a story I experienced into my Urban Legends book. So, Stoll, Kansas is known as one of the 7 gateways of hell, and so much so it's so cemented in lore as one of the 7 gateways of hell that the Pope or anyone from the Vatican who flies into the States will actually not use that path. They will actually either go up or down, but they will not cross Kansas. So that's fun and interesting. So I said, okay, I live in Missouri. I'm like an hour and a half from Stoll, Kansas. Me and my friends were like, we have to go out there and investigate. So we did as much online research as you could back in 98. But this was mostly library research and, actual research at the time. You didn't have a bunch of, fast, high-speed internet.
I was going to say, I'm hearing the AOL dial-up sound.
Right.
Yeah.
So you didn't have much. And this, of course, we got this genius idea at like midnight, which we thought was great because, 3 o'clock witching hour, we'd get there like right on time for some business. So we go to Stoll, and it is, if you pull it up on the map or if you look at it, Stoll is the spookiest, most unreal town at 2:30 in the morning, because you come up over a hill, of course, and it's all farmland. There's nothing else.
It's the only hill in Kansas, by the way.
Correct. Right. It is. And there's nothing around. There's absolutely zero around except for this one road. And on the left-hand side, you have 2 houses. So boom, boom, on the left-hand side, a church, a post office, and another house. That is the town of Stoll. Okay.
And no stoplight to speak of.
Nothing. No, that's it. And on the other side, taking up that full length on the right-hand side, is a cemetery, the Stoll Cemetery. And when we got there, so it was really cool because we got to experience a lot of this stuff before they took it all down. So now they have guards. They have taken the tree down. They've removed the rest of the church because of what I'm going to get into here. But back in 97, I think it was 97, 98. All that was still there, so it was pretty great. So, anyways, the story of Stoll and why it is one of the 7 gateways of hell is that the church that was established there, the minister was having a tryst with one of the congregation.
It's always a tryst.
And ended up getting her pregnant. And instead of manning up and doing the right thing, when he found out, he accused her of witchcraft. And so the congregation, of course, turned on her and hung her outside of the church. And this is all real. This is all in the histories. You can go find all this. So they ended up hanging her. Well, she ended up in the ground right next to the church by the well, and her baby ended up going through the pregnancy, even though she was dead. And it was born unto death. And so it burrowed underground, and it made its way into hell. And so that's why it's one of the 7 gateways of hell, because there is an actual gateway from the well down to hell.
Fascinating.
I've been to Kansas. I don't disagree. It is the 7th gateway to hell. No, I'm sorry. Our listeners in Kansas. I'm sorry.
I'm close to Kansas, but I'm not in Kansas.
I'm close to Kansas too. I'm in Oklahoma, so
yeah. But very interesting story, and the story behind like how the church tried to hide it and everything. It's really very interesting. Go read my book. Yeah,
I'm going to reread that chapter. I assure you.
It's great. But so we get there and we get at the top of the hill. And we see the houses, and it's creepy, and it's foggy. It's 2:30, almost 3 in the morning, and the only thing over on the cemetery side is a chain link fence. It is a 6-footer, but it's just a chain link fence, easy to climb. We say.
I was going to say that would not stop you.
Correct. Right. Correct. So me and my 4 buddies were in a SUV, and we get out, start looking. So we see the church, we see the tree, we see the well, but it's about 100 yards yonder. If we're actually going to be serious, it was 100 yards northwest of where we were. So as we creep up to the fence, we notice that on the other side of the fence is a guard and a dog. And so we're like, oh man, this complicates things. So now we've got our spy, now we're Bond, right? So we're on our hands and knees and we're going around the perimeter opposite the guard and dog. So when we finally get to the point where like enough vision is blocked and we think we've got him figured out, we go ahead and hop. So we hop over, head up to the church. And so what was there when we got there was the four walls. The roof was already crumbled. The roof was already down, but the four walls and the well was there. And one of the legends of this lore is that you cannot break glass inside the four walls of the church. And so we had brought glass bottles. I'm not going to say they were beer bottles. They were just brown glass bottles. But we had brought some, and kid you not, cross my heart, we could not break them inside the church.
Wow.
Wow.
We threw them, and overhand,
Root beer bottles
underhand.
are strong.
They are strong, but I've broken many beer bottles.
Root beer bottles.
Oh, that's right. Oh, crap. Root beer bottles. Yes. But we could not break them. We couldn't do it.
Wow.
And so then
That's
it's
unbelievable.
that is unfreaking believable.
Yes, it is.
And so now it's starting to kind of get to us, right? Like, holy crap, is this thing legit? So we go over and we start taking the rubble off the well because we want to see the gateway to hell, right? So we're taking the rubble off the well. We find it's like a manhole, but it's not obviously one but it's just a giant thick piece of concrete. We find it and we're trying to pry it up. And all of a sudden,
you guys are the reason why horror movies happen. You know that, right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes.
100%. But it's unfreaking believable. So we're starting to try to pry this thing off. And then we start hearing woof, woof, woof. And yeah, the dog caught our scent. He was after us. So we all look up and we're like, oh crap, what are we gonna do? So we start running towards the van. So at this point, we've got an uphill run, and climbing a 6-foot fence from an uphill angle is a bit more difficult than from a level angle or a downhill angle, right?
Yeah, gravity.
So yeah, and so I'm assuming everyone's seen Goonies, right?
Oh yeah.
I'd assume so. And we probably all have a little Goonie friend. What was the name? The fat kid, Chunk? Was it Chunk? Is it Chunk?
Chunk.
Yeah, Chunk. Yeah. So we had a friend. His name was Crumb, but he was Chunk. He was a little bit. I'm trying to be nice about his mental capacity.
Oh, slow.
He was.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but not really. He was just slow because he was dumb. Right.
A
It's not like he was just a dumbass. Are we allowed to say that? We're saying it now.
Well, yeah, I guess we are.
I guess we are. Hey, Jenny did it, not me.
Oh,
So,
why is it always me?
but he's the guy. So Crumb is the guy that you could convince to like run around a police station naked or something like that. He's that guy. So as we're running, we're all in relatively good shape. This was almost 20 years ago. Crumb is lagging behind. And he's huffing and puffing. Dog's on our tail. We can see the dog at this point. So we go. Some of us are helping Crumb. Tim jumps the fence. Oh, I mean, we won't name names.
Yeah.
This guy jumps the fence.
Jim
Jumps
jumps the fence.
Perfect.
Yes.
Jim jumps the fence, and we start helping Crumb. And we all get over. Bones is still down there with Crumb. Bones lifts him up, and we kind of pull him over. He finally gets over. We run to the car. Dog hits the fence. We all jump into the van, and Crumb, as he jumps, smacks his head on the top of the van. Out cold.
Oh,
Bam.
No.
Oh,
Hit
no.
the concrete. Out cold. Guard is 5 feet away from us on the other side of a fence. Dog barking. Dude, we grab Crumb out like a dead body.
Wait.
Grab him, throw him in the van, and hightail it out. That's my unfreaking believable story.
Wow.
is an unfreaking believable story. And I'm quite sure that your buddy has the scars to prove it.
Oh yes.
Oh, my gosh.
Yes.
Permanent goose egg.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, he cracked it and dropped.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
And
That's
you know,
two
because
things I don't do. I don't run and I don't jump fences. I've had my run-ins with that before.
Yeah.
So, Micah, let me ask you, what did you take forward from that, aside from just a great story to tell, to amaze audiences and entertain the masses? But aside from that, did you take any lessons out of that?
Yes, that we need to do more research next time we go into a fenced-off, guarded area.
A little more recon.
Yeah.
Yeah, make sure all your friends are in shape.
Yes. Yeah. Crumb.
And know what the statute of limitations is before you talk about it.
Before telling this, yeah. I don't think, we really didn't commit a crime other than trespassing.
Yeah, I would say a little B&E,
Yeah, that's no big deal. No harm, no foul. So, I mean, if you want to hear,
at worst.
Yeah, if you want to hear other stories that maybe we did commit more of a crime, I can tell you, but this one was not that much of a crime. So.
And fun fact, because we mentioned Supernatural earlier, on the season finale of episode 5, it was at Stull Cemetery.
Yep.
Is where they pop Lucifer back into the box.
Right. So obviously, and they've used, and so the Supernatural writers have used Stoll before. So
their research is great.
If you recall, the Stoll story comes up again and again because Stoll is one of the 7 gateways of hell. Yeah. Yep. So great story, great fun. It's a memory I'll always remember. Yeah.
Right on.
But Jen, to answer your question seriously, I think what I would honestly take away from that, if I had to take away something seriously, was I'm always a pessimist and I don't much believe in the supernatural. But when we couldn't get those bottles to break, it put a little spark of maybe.
Put a little question mark there above your head.
Yeah.
A little cartoon question mark.
A little bit more open to potentials.
Right. So that is something that I outside of the great story, that is something I take away from it.
Okay, a little touch of never say never is always good for a writer.
Exactly,
I like
always
it.
good for a writer.
And thank you for sharing that with us. That was a terrific story. We would also like to thank our listeners for tuning in today, and I want to thank, as always, my co-hosts, my co-hostesses with the mostesses, for joining me again in the madness. Thank you for joining us today, Micah, and being a member of our team. And in true form, Betsy and I personally thank you for being our first guest.
Exactly.
As Betsy was yours.
Thank you for having me. And
since we were your first guest, we have there's reciprocity here.
And good luck, because
before we sign off, Micah, do you want to tell us about what exciting projects you have going on right now that you'd like our listeners to know about?
You know what? Just check out JB Kane. She has some great books under Anatolian Press. Check out Betsy Kulikowski. She's written at least 740,000 books. So check her out. She is awesome. And Jenny is not somebody to sleep on. She's gonna be rocking soon. So I think these three ladies are where it's at. So yeah, check them out.
And check out Micah's Icker and Ink podcast.
There you go.
Which you can find on all your favorite listening locations, including the one you're listening on right now.
If you at all enjoyed that story or my dumb voice, that is all Icker and Ink is. It's just that repeated for hours and hours. So is that a good sales pitch?
That's probably a good sales pitch. I listen to Icker and Ink a lot of times when I'm working out. That's my instead of music, I listen to Chelsea talk about human sacrifice. Yeah.
Awesome. Love it. Yeah. Love it. Yes. Yep.
Jenny, you want to close us out?
Right on. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate and review it on whatever platform that you listen on, and join our Unfreaking Believable Facebook group and follow us on TikTok and Instagram.
And visit our website at www.ufbpodcast.com. And if you have an unfreaking believable story, reach out to us at ufbpodcast@gmail.com. We'd like to hear your story too.
In fact, go ahead and subscribe so you never miss a single Unfreaking Believable episode.
All right, Betsy, you want to take us out with a quote of the day?
All right, our quote of the day comes from Patricia Cornwell.
Yay!
When you create characters, they also create you.
Oh, nice.
That is great.
I like the synergy there.
And be sure to join us next time on February 11th for yet another unfreaking believable guest with an unfreaking believable story.
And as always, thank you for listening. As you go out into the world this week, don't forget, don't just be amazing.
Be unfreaking believable. See you next time.